Hello everyone, welcome to Glopo class. So as we are studying development unit, so today we would be starting with the theories of development. So let's get started, and here we are going to start theories, right? So now in this theories, you will see four kind of theories which I would be covering, right? First theory is modernization theory. Under this, I would be covering even the capitalist theory, right? And in this capitalist, I would be covering through structural adjustment program or Washington consensus. These would be the two models, right? And Rostow's model of development. This would be here. Then we have the second number, which is as the Marxist theory, all right? Or we call it structuralist theory. Under this structuralism or structuralist theory, we would be covering two, which is dependency theory and second one is world system theory. Now the third one we would be covering under development unit, that is called as neoliberalism or liberalism, right? Liberalism or neoliberalism. We would be studying this neoliberalism especially in the context of Chile. Okay. Then the fourth one you have as the state capitalism. State capitalism. All right, and here we would be studying two models, which is Nordic model or Norway model and the China model. So these are the four theories which we study under development unit. Let's go further. Today we are going to cover the Marxist theory. Okay, so now when we say Marxist theory, we are referring the classical Marxist theory, classical Marxist theory of development. Okay, fair enough. So this is what we are going to cover under the Marxist theory. First is classical Marxist theory of development, and as I said above, one would be the dependence, second one would be the dependency theory, and then you will have world system theory. Now let's get started first with the Marxist theory which is applicable at the world level, at the international level, and which talks about the development. So who was the Karl Marx? Karl Marx was the German, right? And he was from poor family. He wrote the book Das Kapital. Okay, and along with Engels, he gave the theory of Marxism, right? Communism, which is falling under communism, Marxism. What did he do? He divided the society into two classes. This is the class-based thing. So he divided this into bourgeoisie and proletariat. All right. Who are the bourgeoisie? Rich one. Rich one are the bourgeoisie, those who haves and those who have no. That is called proletariat, which is the poor class, right? So Marx said that the whole system, the whole society is divided into two parts, which is bourgeoisie and the proletariat, rich versus poor class, right? This was the macro concept of Marx. And then further he went into this one, that why rich is becoming richer, poor becoming poorer, right? So Marx gave the five stages of historical development, that how society is developed. He started first with the primitive stage. Primitive stage was the stage where the hunter and the gatherer, they are the predominant one, right? So it was not the one where people were fighting for their resources. It was where equality prevailed. Then it moves to the slavery one, slavery. Now here comes two classes. What are the two classes? It is slave and masters, right? Masters and the slave. These are the two classes which fall under the slavery. Then you have the third one is feudalism. Now, in this feudalism, there are again two classes. One is landlord, and the second one is those to whom the land has been given, right? Tenants one. So, here again, it talked about that there would be two classes, it would be dominated by two classes again, and then it comes the fourth one, capitalist class. Capitalist. Now, in this capitalist, rich versus poor, bourgeoisie versus proletariat, these would be the classes over here. And then, lastly, Marx um, assumed that there would be socialism after this one, where all the resources would be owned by the state. Socialism, where equality would prevail, poverty would not be longer there. So these were the five stages what Marx envisaged. Now Marx said that this is the any society is becoming rich or the poor because of this category, right? In case if it is a developed country, then it is becoming richer and richer because of this class, rich class over there. And in case if a country becoming poorer, then majority of these poor people living over there. So this is what the Marx talked about in his book Das Kapital, and he said that in the upcoming era the world would go on in the similar way because of the trade system, right? So this trade system would be for the countries where the underdeveloped countries will remain underdeveloped, okay, where they will remain the underdeveloped one. Why? Because the rich people of the world, they would be dominating, they want to be in power, so they would be dominating the world's functions, the world's economy, the world's structure, okay. The world structure would be dominated by the capitalist people. This is what he called structure, okay. Further, which was known as the superstructure and all these things also. So the structure of the world would remain in the hands of the rich people, where they will dominate the world. So this is what the Marxist theory talked about, that why world would be poorer, or some of the countries which are underdeveloped or the developing countries, they will remain poor because of these dominating rich countries which will be dominating through their trade. All right, then we move on to the dependency theory. Dependency theory. Okay, so now in this dependency theory, in 1960s or 70s, world started thinking that why the countries are underdeveloped countries or the developing countries, they are not progressing, they are not becoming richer, or why poverty still exists over there, why inequality. So the two questions were there, that why inequality still exists and why these countries are poor, why poverty remains over there. So this was the question where sociologists, economists, they started thinking and they came up with the theory named as dependency theory. This theory was mainly in the Latin American countries. Latin American countries. All right. And this theory said that there are the two categories of the countries. One is known as core, and the second one is known as periphery. Periphery. So these are the two type of countries which prevail, core and periphery. These core countries are known as developed countries, and this one is known as developing or underdeveloped countries. Now, core countries, they get their resources from the periphery countries. Okay, they keep getting their resources from the periphery countries, and they send their manufactured goods to these periphery countries from where they get benefited. Clear? So this model is existing, and that's why these Latin American countries, they remain poor. There is inequality. This is what this model came up during 1960s, 70s. Remember what was this period? This period was of Cold War. When I would be talking about modernization theory or the Chile's neoliberalism model, that time I would be talking about that how USA started supporting the regime of Chile, and we would be exploring the experiment of Chile with neoliberalism. But this was the dependency theory. I hope this one is clear. Dependency theory, which talked about core and the periphery countries. Then you have the world system theory. Okay, I'm talking in brief about right now dependency theory and world system theory, and then I'll mix together under the part of structuralism. Okay, structuralism, which talks about the two theories, dependency and world system theory, as I spoke under Marxist theory here, that why we are calling it as the structure, because the structure of capitalism is forcing these countries or this model, capitalist model, to be in power so that the poor countries remain poor, right? So that's the structure of this one. Then the world system theory was also on the similar line, but a few differences between the dependency theory and the world system theory. What was the difference? Number one thing is that it not necessarily that it needs to be individual countries. Okay, as this model talked about only the Latin American countries, it did its experiment on some of the countries of Latin America. It said that this model needs to be applicable at the world. There is a world capitalism, which is forcing this world to remain poor, to remain unequal. Okay, and the second one is isolated events. There are no isolated events. What this above theory, dependency theory, was talking about, that there are some isolated events which are playing an important role, and these roles are affecting the individual countries, whereas world system theory did not look at the individual at the atom but at the world level. It also talked about on the similar line that there would be core country, okay, and there would be periphery country. Then world system theory said that there would be one more set of countries which is known as semi-periphery. So what is this? This is periphery. This is semi-periphery. Okay, semi-periphery. And what kind of countries? Core countries. Who are these semi-periphery countries? Semi-periphery countries are the developing countries. India, right? Brazil, South Africa. These many countries or many more countries, they are known as the semi-periphery countries, whom we are calling developing countries, periphery countries, underdeveloped countries, underdeveloped countries. And the core countries are the developed countries, rich countries, right? So they said that this semi-periphery country will get the resources from periphery and will pass it on to core country. Okay, so that means now periphery countries are not only exploited by the core countries, but there is one more model which is known as this semi-periphery, which also be exploiting, right, which also be exploiting these peripheral countries. Core countries would be sending their manufactured goods to semi-periphery as well as to periphery countries. All right, so this periphery countries serving not only to semi-periphery but to core also. All right, and they are sending not only to semi-periphery, they means developed countries not only sending to semi-periphery but to periphery. This was the first thing what they introduced, apart these two things where they differentiated from dependency theory. Apart this one, they said that it's not only about the developed countries which are rich one and semi-periphery or the periphery country which are the poor one, but there is a capitalists which are sitting across these countries, and they want to remain in power. That's why these developing or the underdeveloped countries, they do not become the rich country. So what is this? This is known as global capitalism. Global capitalism. So world system theory, okay, world system theory, it is given by Wallerstein. Okay, so he gave this theory and he said that this global capitalism, which is sitting across the world, not only in the developed country but in the semi-periphery and the periphery countries also, they want to remain in the power, and this is how this model global capitalism is working throughout the world. Who are these things? They are the liberal economy dominates. They could be trade, finance, right? Or MNCs, banks, education. Education can also be ruled by some of these global capitalist people. Media can also be the part of these one. So these were the different sectors which may help the capitalist people to remain in the power, right? Which is known as global capitalism. Now, these are the three models. Now, I just include everything together and give you the assumptions of this one. So, if I mix dependency theory plus world system theory, then it is structuralism. All right. Now, in this, if I go further and I divide this whole world, then this world is divided into four parts. All right. The world is divided into four parts. When you are writing your paper 2 or you are presenting it in your HLX or engagement activity or you are using in your EE, you can either use as per the structuralist theorist, okay, or you can use it as per the dependency and world system theory. You can club them together, as you have seen that both they are talking about the core country or the periphery country. It's just that the world system theory using one more semi-periphery. You can use both the things, all right. You can use the Marxist theory also, the Marxist theory of dependency or world system theory. Then together they divide into four parts, this whole world into four parts. Number one part is known as CC, which is center of center. Center of center. Okay, center of center. Who are these countries? Most developed countries, such as USA, UK, France. Okay, so all these are most developed countries. Now then the second number, it comes as periphery of center. Periphery of center. Periphery of center. Okay, which are these countries? These are countries which is little lesser than these countries, CC countries, such as Canada, Japan, Netherlands, Australia, New Zealand, all right, little lesser than these most developed countries. They are known as periphery of center. Then you have center of the periphery. Center of the periphery. Center of the periphery. Which are these countries? These are the developing countries such as South Africa, India, Brazil. All these countries would fall under CP, center of the periphery. Then you have periphery of periphery, PP. Periphery, I'm not writing the full name, periphery of periphery. Underdeveloped, okay, least developed countries, LDCs countries, all right. such as Honduras, you have El Salvador, Zambia, all these kind of countries would fall under this one. So now how the trade or how the resources moving, this PP is sending to CP, to PC, and to CC, right? This PC is taking away from PP and CP. This CP is also sending to PC to CC. So who is not sending, or who is not exploiting any resource? This PP, which is at the vulnerable coast, right? And then you have the CC, core of the center of the center, which is sending its manufactured goods to PC, to CP, and to PP. I hope this model is clear to you. This is how this world is working, right? Now there are the three assumptions in this one. Number one assumption is international division of labor. Okay, international division of labor, DOL, division of labor amongst these countries. What is this international division of labor? So the center of center, this one dominates. Okay, this one dominates. What it dominates? The peripheries, resources, agriculture, cheap labor, right? So these countries, they are providing agriculture or resources or cheap labor, right? So this is how this circle is going on, where the division of labor has been created in this kind of model. Fair enough? Then you have the second one, which says there is a class distinction. There is a class distinction. What is this class distinction? Amongst all these countries, there is division between the rich and the poor people, right? There is rich versus poor in all these countries. And even if we consider CC as the rich countries, then they are dominating the other countries, or even within these countries there is rich versus poor. Rich people cooperate with the other rich people of other countries to stay in power and to remain in, or to increase their wealth. So if I draw this line, then this is the rich people and this is the poor people. Similarly in PP, if I draw this line, then this is the rich people and remaining poor people. And if I draw over here also, then this is like rich people and remaining poor people. I draw a bit bigger over here, then this is the rich people and the remaining as the poor people. Clear? So these rich people across the region, across the different kind of countries, they want to remain in power, they want to increase their wealth. That's why they are collaborating, cooperating. So number one thing is that there is a division of labor, there is class distinction, and the third point is, as I said above, there is global capitalism. Global capitalism. All right, global capitalism, where this liberal economy dominates through trade, finance, MNCs, banks, education, media. All right, so this is how the world remains poor. Why? Um, why the not the world remains poor? Why the underdeveloped or the developing countries are not are not able to bring equality, or not getting richer, because of these three conditions, or because of these three assumptions, or because of these kind of models. Now apart this model, I would like to say, though it is written um, in my presentation also, I'll just cover quickly over here. Okay, one more aspect they talked about: international aid, that why international aid is not working. So again they say the same thing, because international aid is actually not helping these poor countries to stabilize, or to progress, or to think from their own economy. They are completely dependent on the rich countries. So this international aid is actually a wrong tool. All right, so this is all about your these three theories. Apart this one, uh, why nations fail the bottom billion. So these were the two books which came forward, and they started saying that it's not about just the communist theory, communism, or dependency or world system theory where countries remain poor, because we have seen that this model has also failed. But there are the different factors. There are the other factors also which is not helping country to develop. What are these factors? So these two books, they talked about those factors. So in this book, Why Nations Fail, so here it is discussed that there are the different factors which are playing an important role. One, it could be democratic pluralistic system, democratic pluralistic system. What is this democratic pluralistic system where the power is not grabbed in just one hand, but it is distributed equally? All right. So there are the different power centers also, as we see in the democratic system, that it starts from the grassroots level of democracy, then it reaches to state levels of democracy, then the national level of democracy. Different power centers are there, right? Apart this one, there should be strong laws, strong legal laws should be there, then guaranteed human rights should be provided, right? Then government should encourage people to innovate. Okay, innovation should take place in such kind of countries. Okay, wherever government feels that development should take place, so that means government is providing proper educational system, innovation, lots of opportunities are given to innovate also. Then this book provides two examples of the richest men. One is your Carlos Slim, and the second one is Bill Gates. This book analyzes that how these two people, they could become one of the richest people of the world because of these systems, these factors which were provided by that country, right? So this is what this book talks about. Then this book also talks about that in case if there is bribery, corruption, all these malpractices taking place in that country, high chances country will remain poor. So this is not about the ideology, this is not about dependency theory, or this is not about the core which is taking away the resources of these developing countries by the but the failure of the government, whoever is ruling, that government is not able to provide all these things, the system is not functioning very well over there, right? So this is what this is what is written in the Why Nations Fail. Then you have the second one. This book also talks on the similar line where it says that there are the different things which can play important role to make a country poor. It could be civil war in that country, a continuous civil war, right? It could be bad governance, bad governance. It could be bad neighbors, bad neighbors. Apart this one, this book talks about it gives an example where a country should be considered in case if a country is resourceful in one particular commodity, right? But no, a country may fail even if that country is rich in oil or petroleum or anything. Why? There could be the three reasons also. Again, this book talks about one could be that there is a consistent conflict over the supply of that thing. So let's take example of oil. Let's take example of Venezuela. So yes, continuous conflict is there over the supply. Government accountability, it was very weak over there. The third one was Dutch disease, where the government is focusing only on one commodity and neglecting the other sectors of the economy, right? So this is known as Dutch disease. So this book gives this example as well, that despite a country being rich in the resource, it may also fail. So this is not happening because of this dependency theory or the world system theory, but this is happening because of the government's decision. Further, this book talks about that election plays an important role, checks and balances, right? This plays an important role, freedom of speech, budget transparency. This all these things should take place if a country needs development. All right, so these are the two books example which are the counterclaim. So let's quickly have a look what we have covered so far. So we started that how many theories are there under development unit. Then we move to the Marxist theory, where we are studying the classical Marxist theory of development. How did it start? Marx gave this one, and this is connected to the trade or the underdeveloped, and this remains into the power because of the structure of the capitalists. Then you have the second theory, which is known as dependency theory, which is started in 1960s 70s in Latin America. World was worried, or these countries or the authors were worried. So who were the two main theorists of dependency? It was Roll Prebisch and A.G. Frank. Okay, so um, they started thinking that why world is not progressing, why world is not developing, why some countries remain poor. Then they gave this model of the core and periphery. Then comes your world system theory, which started thinking not only at particular region, at particular country, but started thinking at the global capitalism. That this is the model which is at the world is facing all these things, right? So this is the model which came with Emmanuel Wallerstein, right? And these are the differences between dependency theory and dependency theory and WST. You may not get confused. In case if you wish, you can club both the things under structuralism, or you can write it down, dependency and world system theory, clubbing these four circles. Okay, you can do that as well. So this is, then we move by clubbing dependency and world system theory, and we spoke about CC, PC, CP and PP, right? And these are the four assumptions over there. And then finally, to counterclaim these theories, we have these two books, Why Nations Fail, The Bottom Billion. In case if you want to write the name of the author, you can Google it, you can write that also. I hope you understood this one and this is clear. Thank you for watching this one.